Good morning, everybody. This is Tom Broussard. It is Tuesday, July 28th, the end of the month, getting into August, coming up soon. This is an interesting article. It was more difficult to write because it was so complicated. On top of everything, of course, it has to do with the virus too. These days, everything has to do with the virus on top of everything else you have to do in your life, whether it be your health, your financial issues, you name it. On top of all of that comes the virus. So I know it's very difficult for me to write about it, and it's difficult for all of us to do anything in our new world, hardly new, hardly normal world, and also have to deal with the repercussions of the virus in terms of the economy as well. So I know it's a difficult time for sure. I wrote this article trying to narrow it down. That's why it was a harder article to write, because it has a lot to do with social distancing, which is what now everybody uses with the virus. But people with aphasia have become social distancing professionals long before the virus was in vogue. Because it's a very interesting thing with the virus. You get sick. Trying to combat that is how we do it with our masks and social distancing, leading to some amount of isolation. But it's nowhere near the same as it is for people with stroke and aphasia when you become isolated by accident. Because you lost your language, and that becomes part of the issue of becoming isolated. But on top of that, then you have to volunteer not to engage much and to keep social distancing and using a mask. Plus, you lost your language already. Plus, in order to get better, you have to talk more. You have to communicate more. Because that is how the brain actually works. It doesn't just sit there waiting to get better. It has to engage. It has to work hard. You have to think hard, speak hard, write. You have to do all those things, and you have to do them more. So that's why the social distancing is such an issue for us to learn more about it as a result of the virus, yet realizing, of course, that we've been social distancing, or what now we call social ending distancing for people with aphasia, because we have all these additional layers that are laden on top of the problems with communication. But what does happen, of course, with people with aphasia, when you are unable to communicate, typically, if you had a job before, you've lost your job, you've lost your friends, and it becomes more and more difficult to be able to communicate, because both parties really don't fully understand, or really just don't understand what's going on, because you on the inside, you can't communicate, and people on the outside want you to communicate, want you to be who you were, but you can't, and people really just don't know how to make this work. And as a result, a week, a month, a year of not able to understand, and all of a sudden, after a year or two, that is how you become isolated, because everybody realizes, well, better just not to do anything. And it becomes isolation by osmosis going forward, and social distancing by osmosis, with no one really saying, we're going to do this and have it happen. It's just the way it really does happen. And the first time, not the first time, but the first time I recognized it and wrote it down in my diary, I went to, I was a dean at a college, and it was several months after that I was then working at the Boston University Aphasia Resource Center, and was getting better. And I thought we were moving, and I thought it would be good and time for me to go see some of my friends at work. And it was my first time. Went to the building, and we were having lunch, and it was good. Nice chit chat. I don't remember a whole lot about it in particular, but I do remember one person saying, so you know that Rebecca, that's the name, is getting married. And I said, who's that? And they said, you know, Rebecca. And I said, I don't know who that is. Who is this Rebecca? Of course, they had told me, and I knew later that I had hired her and most of the people in that room I had hired over the years, and I could not remember who she was. And that is how it happens, because it isn't just language. Memory is also an issue as well. And for whatever reason, in terms of short-term memory or longer, I was unable to grasp who she was and unable to even begin to answer the question or even fake it. So that is how it happens going forward, including memory. It is one of the issues why people at hospitals, for whatever reason, don't use the word aphasia as their lexicon. You can go to many, many hospitals, the biggest hospitals in many states, who do not use the word aphasia. If you put the word aphasia in their search box, it'll come up. You put aphasia, and it'll come up and say, sorry, we don't know what that is. Local hospital, many other states that I've checked, it'll say, we don't know what that is. Because they'll often tell their patients with stroke and aphasia that you're having trouble communicating. We're going to send you on. We're going to send you on to a rehab hospital where they obviously do a lot of work with aphasia. But it's more than just communicating, including memory, energy, and a number of other issues as well. But that is how it all happens going forward. And that is the crux of all of this. When you lose your language, you need to continue to work at what I then say stumbling, halting, disconcerting, and embarrassing utterances with people who just want to run away. They don't want to hear this because they just, again, don't really understand, because then it becomes more of an educational issue, helping people better understand how it happens with the brain, how it appears with the symptoms. That is the one thing, of course, but you don't go crazy because you've lost your language. You just can't say anything. And the brain is so powerful, though, if you engage with another person or other people and talk about the issue, even though I couldn't talk well or write well or read at all, but only by doing those items, those activities, do you get better. And that's the way the brain works. And if all of the wider public become more aware about how the brain really does work, you learn. When you're a child and then getting older, you learn the same way. There isn't a test you can take that says, do these things, get them all right, and somehow you'll be better tomorrow. You have to learn along the way. And yes, you can do some assessments to see how you are, quote, remembering those things, but remembering is learning. And learning means building additional brain matter. And that is what a person with aphasia has to do. You have to do those activities. They build more, I call them branches and leaves, but they are dendrites and synapses. They grow more of those. So now you are able to say what you couldn't say before. And I've said it many times to thousands of people with you, I could not do those things. And the way I got better, completely by accident, I did those things based on my habits from before my stroke. And those habits propelled me into being able to induce those activities day to day, forever, for years, and got better as a result of that. And that is the way, that's the crux of all of this. When people with aphasia have lost their language, it takes a lot to get back, never mind the virus, because there's another issue there, another layer there of not being able to communicate because you're wearing a mask and you have to be 6 feet away when people with aphasia can't communicate at any distance. What has happened now, and there's a good story to all of this, was realizing that with Zoom, and I know there's Skype and there's a million other platforms, but Zoom just happens to leap to the top of consciousness when all of us with aphasia, realizing that we still have to do more, not less, of a population that has to do less, not more, because of the virus, Zoom was a large part of the issue. Now we use Zoom on a regular basis, having conversations like this that allows us to have 10, 20, 30, 40. We do one at the Boston University ARC and there's 40 or 50 people, and we get to communicate. Visually, we get to see each other. Body language, we get to see each other. Communicating, we can hear. There's a chat, so we can communicate by writing back and forth while we are doing these things. People without aphasia use Zoom all the time, get very good at it, I'm sure, become professionals for sure. But for people with aphasia, when we on the inside have to realize that we have lost our language, because that is part of the issue. If you've lost your language and you're not aware that you've lost your language, that is another layer. So becoming more aware allows you to see all these different modalities in front of you, and you get to see them and realize, oh, I can hear better, I can write better, I'm not writing well enough, I'm not speaking well enough, I'm hesitating, takes too long, people can't take the time. These are all things that are helpful for a person with aphasia, that yes, normal, healthy people don't even notice them because they are, quote, healthy. But being aware of what is unhealthy, what is not aware, helps us become more aware as part of the healing process going forward. So we have to interact more, not less, as a result of what others had thought was the virus, where you have to be encouraged not to see each other, right? Not to be in big crowds, not because of the communication issue as much as the transmission of that virus, based on being able to speak like this, and out come those droplets, and all of a sudden everybody gets sick. So it is a very interesting event to have this virus in the face of people with stroke and aphasia who have always had a hard time trying to figure out who we are and how we can get better, realizing how we can get better, doing those things, and then boom, comes the virus and realize, oh, all those things that we used to think are highly therapeutic, we now can't do. And yet we still have to get better. And in comes Zoom. And Tom Friedman had written that book, The World is Flat, tremendous book. And he did talk about the technologies that have flattened the world, not unlike the flattening the curve with the curve that we see on the news every day that is unfortunately not flattening, at least in our country. That's always an issue. You have to be aware, you have to be educated, you have to be leading. So it did turn out that Zoom turned out to be one of those technologies of flattening the world that allows us, meaning people with aphasia, to continue. Week, I will see you in a couple more weeks with the next article from Stroke Educator. If you have any calls, any issues, please email me. Most of you have the email. I got one yesterday from 2 days ago from a 74-year-old person from Washington State. So call me anytime. Nice to see everybody. Take care of yourselves. See you soon. Bye-bye.